We moved into my dream house, only to find my in-laws already unpacking. Well then, let me be clear, Justin said, his face contorted into a sneer. My mother and sister are going to live with us from now on. If you don't like it, sleep outside. His words were laced with venom, a cruel mockery of the life we had built together. I felt a familiar pang of anger, a sharp reminder of the constant insults I endured. This time, though, something inside me snapped. If that's the case, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest, I'll sleep outside tonight. Don't complain about who I'm with. Justin snorted, his laughter echoing through the empty house. But the next morning, when he saw the garden, panic flickered in his eyes. He regretted his words. My name is N.L. Barrett. I'm 42 years old and work as a professional freelance illustrator. As I've grown older, my experience has blossomed, allowing me to secure a comfortable income while working efficiently from home. My husband, Justin, and I enjoy the freedom of our private life together in our urban haven. Originally, I had envisioned a family with children, but Justin preferred a child-free existence. His reluctance was unwavering. Judith, my mother-in-law, never understood our lifestyle. Her sharp tongue was a constant source of torment, her words dripping with disdain. A daughter-in-law who doesn't bear children is useless, she would sneer. In the old days, you wouldn't have been able to complain, even if you were divorced. Denise, my sister-in-law, was just as difficult. She belittled my work, dismissing it as child's play. I envy you for getting paid for doodling, she would say, her voice dripping with sarcasm. But you don't make much, do you? After all, you're just relying on my brother. Their constant barbs were fueled by their ignorance. They didn't know that I earned as much as, or even more than Justin, especially during busy periods. Justin, to his credit, always defended me, saying, Anne is a precious daughter from another family. Such rude actions towards someone who is married into our family are unacceptable. Their insults were temporarily silenced by Justin's words, but their animosity never truly abated. In his absence, they would whisper behind my back, their words like daggers. My father-in-law, however, was a different story. He was the only one who truly understood me. His unwavering support was a lifeline in those dark days. Thankfully, their home was several hours away by train, offering us a much-needed reprieve from their negativity. One day, while engrossed in my work, I received a call from Justin. What do you mean your father has passed away? I was speechless, the news hitting me like a physical blow. His condition had worsened without our knowledge. Caught up in funeral arrangements and other preparations, I had no time to grieve. Days blurred into weeks, filled with an endless stream of tasks. Judith and Denise, instead of offering support, dumped all the troublesome matters on me, showing no intention of helping. I had never imagined so much work would be necessary when a person dies. My strength drained quickly. After sending my father-in-law off on his final journey, I finally returned home, hoping to confront my grief. But an unexpected proposal awaited me. Only my mother and sister are left in that house, Justin said, his voice laced with worry. I'm worried about them. So let's move back home. What? Why all of a sudden? I was shocked. What about your job? Don't worry, Justin said, his voice brimming with confidence. I've already secured a job at a company run by a friend back home. All the arrangements are made. You can work remotely, so it doesn't matter where we live. He had planned everything without consulting me. Anger flared within me. There's absolutely no problem, he continued, oblivious to my simmering frustration. I tried to object, but Justin was already preparing to move. Reluctantly, I began packing. He had initially insisted on living with his parents, but I had firmly refused. Then I will stay here, I had declared. Eventually, we settled on an apartment a little away from his parents' house. But even after the move, Judith and Denise frequently visited, disrupting my work. Their sudden appearances were a constant source of urgency, their presence the heavy weight on my shoulders. I tried to subtly hint at them to refrain from visiting so often, but my requests seemed to fall on deaf ears. They came almost every day, spending their time as they pleased. But the stress didn't stop there. The local residents, upon seeing me, would whisper amongst themselves. People from the city stand out here, they would say. You're a bit out of place. You need to make more effort to blend into the community. When I told Justin about this, Judith and Denise, who happened to be there, chimed in with their sarcastic comments. Do I really stand out? Denise asked, her voice dripping with mockery. Their presence was already a source of stress, And now I felt like I had no allies. I regretted moving to the countryside, a heavy sigh escaping my lips. One day, without any special reason, Judith and Denise arrived again. "Aren't there any sweets here?" Judith began, her voice filled with disapproval. "You should be a bit more considerate. We are guests, after all. Shouldn't you have prepared something?" She rummaged through the kitchen cabinets, her complaints a constant drone. It was difficult to patiently endure such demanding visitors, and I sighed internally. Denise, lacking any manners, sat down on a chair and suddenly demanded money from me. "Hey, NL, could you lend me some money?" she asked, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Why don't you consider working and earning your own money?" I countered, surprised by her audacity. "That way you have more money to spend freely." My suggestion only enraged her. She abruptly stood up, hitting the desk with force. "You're lecturing me," she yelled, her voice laced with venom. "What can someone like you, who only finished high school, say to someone like me, who graduated from university? You're way too arrogant. Know your place and act accordingly." Judith, who had been listening, agreed with her. "Denise is right," she said, puffing out her chest. "What an arrogant daughter-in-law you are. The money you're reluctant to part with was earned by my hard-working son. How can you act as if it's yours and be so haughty?" Unfortunately, they were both still unaware of the truth. Justin had recently switched jobs to a company run by a local friend, resulting in a decrease in his income. As a result, I ended up covering the pocket money Denise wanted. Even if I explained this to them, it would be difficult for them to believe it. Their accusations were based on misunderstandings and prejudices, and it didn't seem like the complex tensions within the family would be resolved anytime soon. "I'm really sorry, but I'm very busy right now, so could you please leave?" I asked quietly, yet firmly, after dodging their constant complaints and grievances. Finally, I managed to get them out of the house. As they left with heavy footsteps, I sighed. At that moment, a disgruntled neighbor appeared from next door, showing his displeasure. "It's quite noisy," he said. "Could you keep it down a bit?" "I'm really sorry," I apologized. I hadn't intended to be loud, but Judith and Denise's actions and words had inadvertently caused trouble for my neighbor. I had been careful to live quietly, but this situation had arisen, and I sighed once again. Hours later, when Justin returned home from work, I detailed the events of the day to him. "Living in an apartment inevitably comes with neighbor issues," Justin remarked. But that wasn't the problem here. I wanted him to address Judith and Denise's behavior, but he cut me off, smiling cheerfully and announcing something unexpected. "I've lately been feeling that this house is a bit cramped," he said. "You think so too, right?" "Yes, I suppose I do," I responded, my heart sinking. "That's why I bought a new house with a yard," he continued, his words delivered casually, as if he had just picked up something trivial on his way home from work. I was so shocked that I couldn't immediately grasp what he was saying. "You bought a house?" "Wait, what are you talking about?" I asked, unable to hide my surprise. "Yes, it's secondhand, but it was a good deal," he explained. "I managed to secure it using my savings." I eagerly questioned him about when he decided to make such a major purchase, and why he hadn't consulted me before buying. But Justin seemed unconcerned with my words, caught up in the joy of acquiring a new home. He casually dismissed my concerns. I was about to lose my temper, but since the purchase had already been made, I had no choice but to accept it. The apartment was cramped, as Justin had said, and I told myself that living in a house wasn't a bad thing after all. A few days later, we moved to the new house. However, upon arrival, we were greeted by Judith and Denise, who were already there, settling down. "What on earth is this?" I demanded an explanation, my voice trembling. Justin casually replied, "Oh, didn't I mention they're going to live here with us too? Their old home is getting torn down and will be demolished. The land is going to be sold. The construction contract is already complete, and the sales process is underway." "Wait a minute, why didn't you tell me?" I struggled to comprehend the unbelievable reality. I was overwhelmed. Seeing my distress, Justin continued, as if it were nothing. "Well then, let me be clear. My mother and sister are going to live together with us from now on. If you don't like it, sleep outside." His face sported a mean, ugly laugh as he spoke. The moment I saw his smile, something inside me shattered. "If that's the case, I'll sleep outside starting tonight," I said, my voice filled with a quiet rage. "Don't complain about who I'm with. There's no reason to complain. Do as you like." The two of them watched our exchange with glee, laughing as they said, "Great, now that the nuisance is gone, we can use this place more freely. Why don't you just go back to your parents' house while you're at it?" Ignoring their mocking laughter, I carried my belongings up to the garden. I then made arrangements to begin living outdoors by contacting someone the next day. I slept so well that night, stretching expansively in the garden of the house Justin had purchased. It felt like I had awoken from a deep sleep for the first time in ages. After I moved my belongings to the garden, Justin, as if to harass me deliberately, closed the curtains. He probably didn't know what I was up to outside, but he couldn't keep the curtains closed forever. Morning came, and Justin finally opened them. When he saw the garden, his face changed. "What is this?" he exclaimed, his voice trembling with shock. "See, I told you not to complain, no matter who I'm with." He pointed at my side, his eyes wide with disbelief. "But who brings such a big dog into our backyard?" My large dog, a Rottweiler, wagged its tail in response. I had raised her back at my parents' home. I had set up a large tent I brought from home in the garden and spent the night there with my dog. I had called my mother the night before, explaining the situation in borrowing the tent and my dog. I thought that bringing not just the tent, but also my beloved dog was a good opportunity to enjoy the spacious yard freely. My dog was enjoying the outdoor life, and last night she was in a very good mood. I also had a fun night for the first time in a long while, and woke up feeling refreshed in the morning. On the other hand, Justin was pale and clearly in a bad mood. "That dog, it came from your parents' home, didn't it?" he said, his voice tight with fear. "Take it back immediately. Justin is extremely afraid of large dogs. Part of the reason I brought my dog was indeed to spite him. He had been chased by a large dog as a child and had been afraid of them ever since, to the point that he would get scared just by seeing one. Consequently, when my parents first met him, my brother had to take the dog for a walk. But let's leave that story for now." Hearing Justin's screams, Judith and Denise appeared in the garden, rubbing their sleepy eyes. "What's the matter, Justin? Why are you yelling so early in the morning?" Judith asked. "What? Why is there a dog here?" They, too, were not fond of dogs, often grimacing just hearing that my parents had a large dog at home. The sudden appearance of the dog threw them into total disarray. Justin was also disturbed and began shouting for the dog to be taken out of the house. "What are you doing? This is just the sort of thing a high school graduate would do," he yelled, his voice laced with anger. "I can't forgive this. I never thought I had such a crazy daughter-in-law. Normal people don't do this kind of thing. You're really out of your mind. You completely lost it." I remained silent as the three of them mercilessly criticized me. "It's so noisy this morning," I said, speaking to my dog. He wagged his tail vigorously. Though large in size, he was gentle, extremely smart, and kind. However, he showed no mercy to those who threatened his family. "Why aren't you leaving? Can you hear me?" Justin's sharp words rang out. My dog growled protectively by my side, causing Justin to yell pitifully. At that moment, there was a whistling sound from the large tent I had been staying in. "What's all this noise first thing in the morning?" A voice boomed from within. "Good morning, Dad." Emerging from the tent was my father. Justin, upon seeing him, let out a cry of surprise. "Good morning, Justin," my father greeted him warmly, while Justin just stood there, his mouth agape. "I'm hungry, bro," my brother chimed in next as he stepped out of the tent. My brother is married and usually lives elsewhere, but after hearing about my situation yesterday, he suggested, "Let's all camp out in the garden. Don't worry if any problems arise. We're here." Thus, it turned out that my entire family was enjoying a campout at our house. "Good morning, everyone," my mother said as she appeared next. She had a bright smile, suitable for the morning, but her eyes were not smiling. When I explained the situation to her yesterday, she was the most outraged. Although she doesn't explode with emotions like Justin, she harbors anger internally, evident from her cold gaze towards my in-laws. Justin then said, "It's been a while." His voice strained. The energy he had earlier was gone, and he was awkwardly trying to muster a smile. Justin might act tough with me, but he can't do the same in front of my father and brother. The reason is that both are very muscular, which intimidates him. My father is a former self-defense force officer, robust and muscular, even after retirement. He doesn't skip his daily training and even placed in a triathlon last year. Despite the muscular men in the house, it's actually my mother who holds the highest rank in our family hierarchy. Our dog also trusts her the most and sees her as its leader. Even now, it's composedly next to my mother. My brother and father often say that no matter how much they train, they can't match up to our mother. While she may not possess physical strength, she knows how to exert her influence when necessary. Once, when I was a child in elementary school, and a classmate was malicious towards me, my mother spoke directly to the teacher and had the other child's parent call the school. "There's no need for extra words," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I want to know why you did such a thing to my daughter. Please speak freely." Although always smiling, the pressure she exerted was immense, and it eventually led to the other child and their parents breaking down in tears. At that moment, I made a mental note never to anger my mother. Had I discussed the situation with my family earlier, my parents and brother would have supported me. However, I wanted to avoid worrying them. I wanted them to think I was living a happy married life. That's why, even when Judith and Denise treated me harshly, or when Justin unilaterally decided to relocate, I said nothing. When I contacted my mother yesterday, she was angry, but also very worried. "You've always been so patient, but I can't bear to see you endure and struggle," she said. "You are very precious to me." Although I am now an adult and independent, her words nearly brought me to tears, and I deeply regretted not consulting her sooner. Now my mother faced my in-laws with the same stern expression she had when confronting the parents of my childhood classmate. This was the first time my mother and my in-laws had spoken like this since the initial meetings and the wedding. They've had little contact since then, so my in-laws likely never expected her to be such a formidable figure. "I've heard you insult my daughter multiple times from inside this tent," she said, her voice polite but assertive, leaving no room for rebuttal. Calling her education inferior because she only graduated from high school, saying her thinking is abnormal, among other things. "Now, could you please explain why you directed such unpleasant words at my daughter?" It was clear that her words came with a lot of pressure. Each time my mother spoke, you could feel the atmosphere cool down, and her eyes were certainly not smiling. When I looked at my father and brother, they were pale, even though they were not being scolded. Our pet dog was also afraid of my mother's gaze. The in-laws facing my mother all had pale faces. Justin tried to excuse himself. "It was just a minor disagreement with NL," he said, his voice trembling. But my mother countered, "Oh, a minor disagreement?" Justin became even more flustered by my mother's chilly response. Then, he started to blame me. "How cowardly of you to call your family over," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You were with your family too," I countered. "Is there a problem with that?" Justin was at a loss for words. He tried to demean me, but he was clearly at a disadvantage. After pondering for a while, his face suddenly lit up, as if he had a brilliant idea. "That's it," he declared, his voice full of conviction. "We're getting a divorce." "To think you'd do as you please at home," he continued, his voice sounding triumphant. Was this his last resort? Did he think that by mentioning divorce, I would be shocked and apologize? I felt nothing when Justin mentioned divorce. My love for him had vanished long ago. With a mix of disdain and calm, I made a significant accusation. "I don't mind the divorce," I said, my voice steady, "but you will be paying a substantial property division for your infidelity." "What did you think I didn't know?" I continued, my voice growing colder. "This is a small town, and an affair with someone from your own company would be conspicuous." Ended. Justin had been having an affair with a woman in her 30s who worked at the company run by his college classmate. Since the woman was also married, exposure of the affair was bound to cause a scandal. I had been suspicious of his late returns, but the discovery of a woman's handkerchief and a hotel receipt in his clothes confirmed the affair. There were no detective agencies in this rural area, so I conducted the investigation myself and found a plethora of evidence of his infidelity. The evidence was so abundantly clear, it made me wonder how he could have been so careless. "If I submit these to court, there's no doubt I'd win a claim for property division," I said, my voice unwavering. "If that's the case, I'll introduce you to a lawyer friend of mine," my father said. "Really, that would be helpful." "Thank you, Dad." Justin was shocked that his affair had been exposed. His face turned pale, yet he was not ready to give up. He tried to retort with a trembling voice. "No, this is your fault," he said. "You're always at work, ignoring me." My brother immediately responded, "My wife works full-time too, but that doesn't justify an affair, does it? How self-centered can you be?" My brother looked at Justin with a look of disbelief. As a fellow married man, he couldn't comprehend Justin's logic. Exactly as my son said. Your incompetence is why my daughter has to work so hard, my father quickly added. If you had been a more trustworthy husband, it wouldn't have come to this. Justin seemed lost for words due to their pointed rebukes. Judith and Denise, however, supported Justin's actions. It's clear that the problem lies with your daughter, Judith said, her voice dripping with malice. We will hire a lawyer and seek property division as well. Yeah, even though she says she works hard, her job isn't all that significant, Denise added, her voice filled with scorn. My mother quickly responded, it's your right to hire a lawyer. But do you really think it's acceptable for the person who committed adultery to demand property division? I pity any lawyer who takes on such a case. Could it be that you're lacking common sense? Judith staggered back awkwardly at my mother's sharp retort. Furthermore, Denise, my mother continued, her voice unwavering, do you even know how successful my daughter is? If you search her name, you'll see the company she's involved with. And what about that haughty attitude of yours? You don't even work yet. At your age, you're still dependent on your brother and his wife. Aren't you ashamed? Denise's face turned red upon hearing these words. Justin then exclaimed, looking at us while trying to contain his anger. At it, he said, his voice strained. But Justin had recently purchased a new home and had no savings left. He sought financial help from his classmate, who had employed him. But during this process, his affair with a coworker was discovered, and his classmate was furious. As a result, both Justin and his affair partner were fired from the company. In the end, Justin could only secure a loan from consumer finance companies, using the money to pay the property division. However, the loan came with high interest rates, making repayment very challenging for him. By the way, the woman involved in the affair was also divorced by her husband, who then demanded property division from Justin. Consequently, Justin was burdened with paying 2 property divisions, forcing him to sell the newly purchased home to cover these costs. After selling the house, Justin, along with his mother, Judith, and sister, Denise, moved to an older apartment with cheaper rent. Justin managed to find some part-time work, but life was very tough for them. Denise finally started working as well, but without a proper employment history, she even struggled to find part-time jobs. Judith registered with a senior employment center, but job options were limited in the countryside, ultimately burdening Justin to support all 3 of them with only the income from his part-time job. It was difficult for him to support himself, let alone 3 people. They faced a bleak future. While proceeding with the divorce from Justin, I spent several days moving belongings out of the in-laws' house. During one of these days, a neighbor suddenly approached me. You're new around here, right? He asked. I heard you're Mrs. Barrett. Yes, that's correct, I replied. The neighbor then expressed concern. The lady and daughter of that house have a bit of a bad reputation around here. They're known to be condescending and to harass the neighbors. We were worried about your situation. Are you okay? If you need help, we're here to offer it. When I first moved to this area, I felt ostracized and thought the locals were wary of outsiders like me. However, they were actually concerned about me. Learning this truth, I relaxed and a smile naturally appeared on my face. There's no problem, I said. Thank you. When I mentioned I was getting a divorce, the neighbor genuinely looked relieved and said, that's good. I inwardly apologized for regretting my move to the countryside, realizing the community was more supportive than I had expected. Without Justin and his family, this place would have been wonderful. After removing my belongings from the in-laws' house, I completed the move and the divorce proceedings. All that was left was to receive the final payment of the property division. However, on the day of the final payment, I received this message from Justin. This completes the payment of the property division. Does this settle everything? How about we start over? I had kept Justin's contact unblocked until the property division was fully paid, but receiving such an unpleasant message made me feel that I should have blocked him from the start. Start over. What kind of joke is that? I replied. I would refuse even if you offered me a fortune. Never contact me again if you try to reach out and have been enjoying my freedom with the funds obtained from the property division. I treated my supportive family to a luxurious wellness trip. The time spent with my parents and my brother's family was an unforgettable and enjoyable memory. Being free from supporting Justin's family, both mentally and time-wise, has given me more space in my life. While it's good to dedicate myself to work, there is no longer a need to overwork. Being released from the obligation to support the in-laws has also given me financial ease. Having learned from my failed marriage with Justin, I am hoping to meet someone better next time. In the urban area where I live, being single in my age group is not uncommon, and events for singles in their 40s are frequently held. It takes a bit of courage, but I plan to try attending one of these parties soon. I will never undervalue myself again. Aware that I am the only one who can treat myself as valuable, I intend to enrich my life moving forward. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe for more awesome stories like this. Stay blessed and healthy. Thank you for watching and see you in the next story.